What's up? Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
We're here to talk to you once again about Metal Gear Solid. We did not quite finish the first disc.
Not quite. We had just gotten past like a torture moment.
Yes, so we're in the jail cell.
We're in the cell now.
With the rotting corpse.
The dead DARPA chief.
The DARPA chief. Some interesting things about this.
Worms and maggots and all
that. He's decomposing. His body's decomposing, which suggests he's been dead
his clothes
quite a long time.
Are also decomposing, it seems.
Yes.
Because the worms are on his
And Snake takes notice of the fact that his blood is like it's been drawn out.
It seems like he has no blood.
Yes.
Yep.
Important pieces of information there. So after seeing that, he confronts Campbell about what Campbell knew regarding the Metal Gear Rex and the whole project and everything, and its capability to launch a new type of nuclear warhead. Like, did you know this, right? Campbell basically mentions that even the president doesn't know about that, and Snake's response is plausible deniability. Huh?
Yes, exactly. That's how all of this works.
Yeah.
Anytime the president claims to not know something, it's like, yeah, well, they didn't want to know so that they wouldn't get in trouble for it.
Right.
It's annoying.
Campbell also explains here that the following day, the president was supposed to be signing the START 3 Accord.
Yep.
So this was a real thing, or was meant to be a real thing. There was two before this. It was all about denuclearization. Treaties that were signed and things like that. So the START 3 Accord is supposed to be signed tomorrow, and that's kind of why Liquid and his gang, they're doing this. The timing of it is really key.
Yeah.
Because if this information comes out, if it goes public, if this nuclear strike happens right before the START 3 Accord, it's going to look really, really, really bad for the U.S. As they're coming in to sign a treaty about denuclearization, yet they're developing Metal Gear.
Like new nuclear weapons and stuff, and clearly.
START 3 Accord actually was never signed in real life as well.
Oh, really?
Quote here from Campbell, "We still haven't ratified START 2 or dealt with the issue of TMDs. This has to do with the president's reputation and America's place as the dominant superpower." That's really what this mission is about.
Right, yeah.
That's actually what they're concerned about. So Snake says, "So patriotism is your excuse for circumventing the Constitution?" And Campbell says, "Please, Snake, just stop them." And Snake says, "Why should I?" And Campbell says, "Because you're the only one who can."
Perfect.
Snake then tells Campbell to tell him more about the new warhead, and Campbell claims not to know anything about it. Snake does not believe that. And then he asks about, if this is as serious as you're saying it is, why don't you just give in to the demands? Like,
right, yes.
Just give them the remains of Big Boss. What is the big deal?
It's because that's not all they want. They want him for his DNA, right? Now, somebody did
also
leave.
the president has been vocal in his opposition to eugenics experiments. So it would be, again, like the president doesn't. The president probably campaigned on some of that.
Yeah.
So like giving away Big Boss's remains for more eugenics experiments would be something the president would not be happy
That
about.
it wouldn't look very good.
Yeah.
So we got a comment on, I guess, episode 2 that talked about why it may actually be more important. Big Boss's DNA is more important than a nuclear bomb.
Okay.
And one of the suggestions given was that despite nuclear bombs having been around for 70, 80 years, the terrorists or nobody has ever actually taken one and used it in a negative way. But people have often overthrown entire governments and caused all sorts of problems, like individuals have done this. Whereas the nuclear thing hasn't really happened. And so if you have big bosses around there, they can actually cause more problems themselves than a nuclear bomb necessarily. That's just a suggestion, but that was the idea.
Yeah, the idea being there's never been a successful terrorist nuclear strike.
Yes.
Despite the technology being there all these years.
The only strikes that have ever happened were World War II.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but then how many evil people have just murdered millions of people in the time since then? You know, it's like, well, that does keep happening somehow.
Yeah. I think that was Chocolate Rob who said that.
Sounds about right.
Okay, so at this point, there is no choice any longer but to destroy Metal Gear itself. So there's no more deactivating it as far as they're concerned because they don't know where the other keys are at.
Yep, just break it.
So since then Campbell tells him to bust out. I'd laugh at that. Just bust out of your cell. Like go to the communications tower, right?
Bust
just
out
like
of
break
my
out.
cell.
Okay, you got to break out. Like time to
easy.
Kind of funny. And then he tells him to save Meryl. So there's kind of a couple. There's 3 different ways I think that this can go. How you get out of the cell.
Okay.
One of them is that the guard who's kind of walking around, I think his name is Johnny, he'll eventually kind of run like into the bathroom or something, be like, he gets sick and he'll run in there. And you can hide underneath the cot or like the bed in the cell, and he'll come back in and be like, oh my gosh, where'd he go?
Where did he go?
And he opens the door and comes in and you beat him up and leave. The other one I think is the one that you did. That's where Otacon comes, because you can call him on the comm.
Yeah,
right?
you call him up,
on the codec. And he'll come by to talk to you, and he gives you some items. He gives you
ketchup,
some food,
and tuna fish, or something like that.
And he's like, "Oh, just like great. You're gonna have to take that guy out and give me, open this door for me." He's like, "Are you kidding me?
I can't do that."
Out.
Even though he's like invisible. Yeah.
And he doesn't want to hurt anybody. He refuses to kill. Yeah. So he just leaves you with ketchup and tuna, and he leaves.
Yep, and he leaves, and he does not tell you what to do with them.
No, but you figure it out, and you did this one, right?
I did, yeah. It took me a while. I just didn't know what to do, because it doesn't say, like, you can pause and go through your items and catch up, and it's like but it doesn't say what's going to happen if you do it. And so I'm just like, this is dumb. Like, this doesn't make sense. And I really thought that it was just like a joke thing. But anyways, I ultimately just like pushed it, and it was like, oh, and he just did it. So it's like, okay, cool, I guess. But yeah, that was kind of funny. It was a little bit confusing, but we can talk about that in a minute, because, well, Otacon comes back and says, haha, that's exactly what I was thinking, or you thought what I was thinking, or something like that.
Yeah.
And that, from a personal or maybe a more of a story narrative perspective, is not good. Like, that's really bad, because
why doesn't he
just tell you? Yeah. Why doesn't he just say, hey, use this as fake blood and the guard will come in, right? But instead, but this is a gameplay thing. Yeah. Once again, it's like, hey, this isn't great for the story, it's not great for the characters, it's not great for you liking the characters at all, but it is very fun to kind of figure out on your own a unique way to get out of a situation, to solve a puzzle. Oh. And that's super fun in the game. And so if Otacon told us what to do, sure, that makes more sense for the story. But for the game, it's way more interesting to have him give you random items and have you kind of have to figure out what to do with it.
It's actually unnecessary for him to say, oh, you were thinking the same thing as me. He could say, like, oh, that was really clever, Snake. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, I didn't know. And I was literally just giving you dinner.
Right, exactly.
That would be funny.
And then, it wouldn't, this problem wouldn't exist. I had in mind that you do this, but I didn't tell you.
No.
So, anyway, it's kind of funny. But, yeah, so you use the ketchup as fake blood, and you lie in that little pool, and then the guy comes back like, oh my gosh, what happened? He comes in, and you beat him up.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a timer as you're like trying to find out what to do, and every once in a while he'll come back and drag you out to go get tortured again by Ocelot.
Yeah. And how many times were you tortured?
Just the 2. So the
Twice.
initial,
okay, I was gonna say,
and then
at least
the second
twice.
time.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm pretty sure you can't really. I'm pretty sure the second time is mandatory.
It's both are mandatory. Okay, I was just making sure I couldn't have escaped before that.
Yeah. That may not be the case. Maybe you can escape before that. But I don't remember the guard ever going into the bathroom like that until after the second time. But
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not totally sure.
Yeah.
But you have to survive the torture again, because if you submit, well, we're getting
bad things happen.
Bad things will happen later on that we'll talk about in the final episode. But you don't want to give in to the torture. Unless you want a different ending, I guess.
Don't give in to the pain.
And then the third way that you can get out of here is that, like, if you use up the ketchup or whatever, and you've tried hiding under the bed, but Johnny, like, found out. So, like, the first time I tried it, I came out before he came in. He opened the door, but before he came inside,
right?
I came out, and then he closed the door right before I got to him.
He's like, oh, there he is.
And he's not going to be tricked by that again.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So your chance of doing it that way is over. And if you like use the ketchup and you don't get out again, now it's like all your chances of getting out are gone.
Yeah.
Then Gray Fox will come in and open the door for you. And you can
that's fun.
So that's the third way in which you can escape.
Cool.
So Cyborg Ninja will come let you out eventually.
I did not know that.
So those are the 3 ways you can escape from the sail. Okay, so some of the things that Ocelot talks about the second time he's torturing you, he's talking about rebuilding Mother Russia.
Yeah, he wants Russia to lead the brave new world order.
Yep.
Yeah.
He says, 20th century Russia had its problems, but at least it had an ideology. Today it has nothing. And Snake says in response to that, they're struggling between freedom and order, and with that struggle, a new spirit of nationalism has been born.
Yes, that is correct, actually. That is correct. And that's how it works. You look at World War I, and Germany just gets crushed, and their economy just gets leveled.
Yeah.
And from the ashes of the newfound poverty that this once great nation found itself in, new nationalism was born, and that was Hitler and the Nazis. So that is kind of how things work. That's part of the genius of the Marshall Plan, which is after we beat Germany in the Second World War, the United States decided to give them money and help them rebuild quickly instead of letting them just suffer because screw those guys, and then they come back again 20 years. The next generation wants to fight again. It's like, no, let's actually give them money and let's help them rebuild their country quickly, and let's become allies with them, and let's establish something of a puppet government as well. we did a lot of things, but it was all to prevent war, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
And so, but when the Soviet Union fell, we didn't
do that,
help them in any way.
Yeah.
And so, of course, well, now it's 2022, and you guys all know how that's gone.
Yeah. Ocelot then tells Snake that Liquid knows someone high up in Spetsnaz. So you come across Ocelot and Liquid talking. This is much later. You've gone into the communications tower at this point.
Okay.
And like they're kind of in a room there talking to each other, having a conversation. So Ocelot, sorry. Scratch that. This is when he's torturing you, the second time.
Okay.
So while he's, just before beginning to torture you again, Ocelot tells Solid Snake that Liquid knows someone who's high up in Spetsnaz and that they're interested in buying Metal Gear Rex. So somebody in the Russian government
of course,
is interested in buying it. And that the Hind D, the helicopter they got, was like a down payment for that.
Nice.
It was like the first installment of payment for Metal Gear.
Nice.
By the way, we've had quite a few people reach out about our question as to whether that helicopter could possibly take down an F-16.
What's the verdict?
Definitely no.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
There's actually somebody who follows us on Patreon who...
Oh, yeah?
Actually, let me just pull up his comment. This is a good
Oh, that'd be great.
Because he has... he's messaged us in the past about these kind of military systems and things.
The Ff8, right? About the error of margin.
Yes.
Yeah, that whole...
And how that's total BS, and there's absolutely no way it would be designed that way. The error ratio.
Yes, and the error ratio actually makes a bigger field of destruction. So
he says, a question was posed about whether an old Soviet helicopter could take down an F-16. The short answer is no. I say this as a PhD physicist who works for the Air Force, though I do not wear a uniform, however, and am not a pilot. I suppose if you had technical failures on the F-16 of an extreme degree, you might get lucky.
This is that one, what's all that 1 in a million talk? This is the 1 in a million talk.
B, I suppose if the F-16 pilot were incapacitated in some form, human error might change things. However, these are extreme events. Fighter planes are meant for air superiority and to take down bombers or helicopters. Helicopters are not air superiority fighters. Ground air defenses would much more plausibly intercept an F-16.
An F-16, exactly. A surface-to-air missile or something.
Yeah.
Not a Hind D. Okay, so my intuitions were correct.
Yes.
But Liquid Snake is just a whole nother level, I guess.
That's the point that other people were making, was like, this is meant to be this B-movie level way of showing you how badass Liquid is.
Okay, like when Arnold Schwarzenegger is like in True Lies, where he's like piloting the Harrier jet, and he's like, "You're fired." Okay, well, I get that.
Yes,
Where it's like, hey, this could never happen.
Liquid
but it's pretty
is just
fun.
that
It's
good.
pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, Liquid's
I
just
gotcha.
that awesome.
Yeah.
Is basically the point of that, I guess. Okay.
I just now got why they replaced Donald Trump with Arnold Schwarzenegger on The Apprentice. And it was because of his line, "You're fired," in True Lies. That's the reason I just now realized that.
so
My
funny.
gosh, that's great.
All
Some
right.
producers knew what they were doing.
So Snake says to Ocelot, "So you're in this for the money?" And Ocelot says, "I don't need money. I want Russia to be reborn, to lead a brave new world order," like you were saying.
It's the collectivist sentiment where he
So-
will die for the country instead of just for his own personal gain.
Right. So this is setting up a little bit of Ocelot's motivations for what he's doing.
Yeah.
You know, we've gotten kind of differing things from each of these Foxhound people we've encountered.
They're all way, way different. They all
Yeah.
have different like ideas. Like when Ocelot's like, "Mother Russia will be reborn," it's like, well, how do the other ones think? They don't care about that. Like, does everyone else know about your sneaky little plan to rebuild Mother Russia? Like,
Right.
doesn't sound like they'd be down with it.
Psycho Mantis just wants to kill as many people as possible.
Yes.
Like,
And then
yeah.
the Raven guy, what's his
Vulcan
name?
Raven,
Vulcan Raven. He's just, gosh, he's on like a spiritual journey.
Yeah,
Like
right.
his is like a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
And even Sniper Wolf, it's like in fact, she would probably really not like the idea of Russia becoming the new dominant power.
Right.
We'll talk about her later, but yeah, they're all so different. Not just like they're different ideologically. It's amazing that they can even work together at all, because they would have diametrically opposed like life philosophies and world views and all of that stuff.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But somehow they're unified under
The
something.
enemy, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so Naomi comes in. She asks if she can help Snake in any way. He begs her to
he's-
talk to him to help him take his mind off the
Take
pain.
it away the pain. He tells her that he only has 2 friends. This is
Yes.
great because she's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." It's in a really awkward situation. For her, she doesn't know what to say. It is an awkward conversation, but there are things you find out later on that actually make this conversation a lot
Yes.
more valuable.
Yes. Yes.
And Naomi is really confused by Snake being like this. But they're able to have a deep conversation in which Snake reveals that he has 2 friends. One of them was
Gray Fox.
Fox, which was Frank Yeager. Is that
Yep.
it? His real name is Frank
She's
Yeager.
really shocked by that. Like,
So-
how can that be true?
But we have to like go down the line here. So Frank Yeager is Gray Fox, who is
Cyborg Ninja.
Cyborg Ninja, who is voiced by hold on, who is voiced by James Flinders, who is voiced by Cam Clark. So there's like a 5-level deep like issue here. That's pretty funny.
By the way, there's been
Yeah.
some people responding to why they
I've
did.
heard there was union stuff, but
Yes.
I need someone to explain it. Okay, so remember in The Office where Steve Carell's like, "Explain to me like I'm 10," and then they explain it, and then he's like, "Now explain it to me like I'm 5." Like, I get it. Okay, unions exist and they have rules, but these people weren't part of the union. So now, like,
I thought they were. I
Oh,
thought they
were they?
belonged to the Screen Actors Guild. And so therefore,
some other people.
sometimes when they want to take a job without involving the union in that, they're going to credit as a different name in order to not like. I thought that was the deal.
I
Like,
get it. I must have read a comment
They
that didn't
wanted to
explain it that way.
accept this job, but
Yes.
they didn't want to have to. They didn't want to go through the fees. I guess this happened with us.
There are issues.
With
Yes.
With
Oh, what's his name?
who played Dovahkiin
What
in our
was his
our
name?
film?
Yes.
Paul Hunt.
Paul Hunt. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. He is.
Like he
Technically.
didn't want to get his agent involved.
Yes, none of that
Or
stuff.
the Screen
yeah.
Actors Guild
Though
involved.
we did credit his real name.
We did credit his real
Yeah.
name, but it was kind of paid under the table kind of
Yes.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Because like I guess the money he was working for on this was not enough to like merit like splitting that up or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's exactly the same situation, but something like that where it's like
Yeah.
they want to take this role, but they don't want to go through the hassle of the union.
The union and all the other.
So they
yeah.
just said, credit me as a different name.
Right.
I think that's what they were saying.
That makes sense. In which case, David Hayter wasn't part of the Union?
I don't know.
By the way, did we mention that he wrote the first X-Men movie in the 90s?
Did he really?
He was the writer for X-Men.
X-Men 1?
And he wrote X-Men 2 also.
I knew he was a screenwriter. I didn't know
he has written several huge movies.
That's
very
crazy.
Big movies. And X-Men 2 is one of the best movies
X-Men 2
ever.
is freaking sweet.
Yeah. So in fact, so I watched the Game Informer interview with him and all of the voice cast, right, including the voice director and all this stuff. There is some fascinating stuff there. It's really interesting to go into. First of all, David Hayter isn't a huge fan of Hideo Kojima.
They're on bad terms.
They aren't. And Hideo Kojima, he said he felt like at every turn Hideo Kojima was trying to get him fired.
Yeah, because he actually had to audition for Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4.
Yeah, for each subsequent one. They were like, okay, let's see if we can't get someone better. And anyways, David Hayter and Hideo Kojima did not really get along. But David Hayter also was kind of like not in a great place in LA and Hollywood. And when he got the voice role for Metal Gear Solid, it was like a decent break, but it was, work was sparse. And finally he wrote the script for X-Men and that got picked up. And from then on, he's been very successful as a screenwriter. But yeah, he wrote X-Men 2. I just can't believe that.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay, so here's Andrew Koss's comment on this. To Kaysen's point about the actors using pseudonyms, that was down to the Screen Actors Guild's rules for recording video games being a bit iffy during that time. So most of the cast worked under a different name to still participate.
Which is more or less my intuition, was like maybe it wasn't the actors themselves, but there were forces involved that did not take video games seriously.
Yeah.
Therefore, they had to pretend to be other people.
The Screen Actors Guild had not yet detailed their guidelines or rules or whatever for
games.
Voiceover work for games. So it was like, I still want to participate in that without their oversight or being involved. So just use a different name.
Makes perfect sense.
That was the idea.
Perfect sense.
Okay. So Gray Fox, he says, is his friend.
And Roy Campbell.
Roy Campbell. He's like, oh, you still consider me a friend?
You think I'm a friend? And he's just like, it almost shows how pitiful Snake's life is.
Yes.
It's actually kind of sad, and it's almost like he doesn't know what a friend is. But instead of just doing the cheesy B movie thing, which they don't shy away from in this
not at all
in this game, but they did at this point, instead of being the I don't have friends or I don't even know what a friend is, I've never, but instead it's like, oh, I can think of a couple, and then he names some people, and it's like, dude, that's sad. That's really sad. I'm sorry, Snake, but he lives a very isolated life. He might be an otaku.
Yeah, he might be
too.
The ultimate otaku. Well, a dog musher version of whatever that is.
Yeah, a dog musher otaku.
He also says that after so many wars, it's hard for him to trust anybody.
Yeah.
I think Naomi asks him if he's got a woman in his life. That's what he said in response to that. Then she asks about the friends, and he says Roy Campbell and Gray Fox. She's really confused about the Gray Fox thing.
I know. She's like, what?
You killed Gray Fox.
And he's like, we were working.
It wasn't personal.
Yes.
We were just professionals on opposite sides of. Yeah.
We talked about this briefly in Mass Effect, though, with what's his name, the big dude, the monstrous looking guy.
Rex.
His name. Rex, yeah, and how there were moments where he, as a mercenary, had to fight other people of his dwindling species, and he was just like,
other Krogans.
It's work.
Yep.
There's a lot of parallels between Mass Effect and Metal Gear.
We've noticed a few, along the way. Anyway, she seems upset about it, though.
Yep, she's not happy.
She's not keen about his answer, or she's not keen on his answer about Gray Fox.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind for later. So she says all men are alike and that they're wild animals, and he says she's right. All men are wild animals. She says that it's men's genes that make them predisposed to violence.
Yeah, she's all about those genes.
That's more or less correct. It's technically true. It's technically true.
Yeah. A lot of things are technically true.
The more testosterone
right.
you have, the more likely you are to be aggressive. Snake asks why she got into genetics, and then that's when she mentions that since she didn't know her parents, it was her way of trying to understand where she comes from.
Exactly. So she says, I thought if I studied my genetic structure, I'd find out who I really was. And that's just not really how things work, like in any way at all, ever. Like if I want to know who you are, and I like grab your arm and I like get a microscope and I'm just like,
take
like
a sample.
The smallest scale, you know, examining like at the cellular level, like, oh, your DNA says this. Like I don't know anything about you, right? Like, oh, that's who you are. Okay. Like, come on.
I guess this all plays into the idea that they thought they would be able to unlock all the mysteries of humanity once they sequenced the genome.
Yes.
And that's not what happened.
It's not. But even Naomi, throughout the theme of this game, being that it's not all just genes, Naomi is kind of seeing her deterministic, like materialistic worldview crumble right in front of her. Because she's like, I examined my genes under the microscope, but I still don't know who I am. And so it's like, oh no, that's not that's not who I am, I guess. And so she's having to grapple with this new idea of, well, who am I? And if I'd spent years researching, becoming a world-renowned, you know, like DNA specialist, genetic researcher, you know, this top scientist, and I just now found out that it's not even like useful to what I want to do. Like now I've got to go do something else, right? And so it's not only the time commitment that it would take to get to her level, but it's also just like everything about life, you know, just in philosophy and everything. And she's just like, everything's just crumbled, and she's like thrown back into no man's land, which is presumably where she was when, what was the country? She was from a country, it was like Zimbabwe, but
yes, that's now called
Rhodesia.
Zimbabwe. Rhodesia. That's the one.
Yeah. And how back then she was thrown into a world of not knowing what her future held, you know. And then she's been researching this, thinking this is where my future is, and now she's just been cast back into that world of like, I once again don't know who I am or where I am or any of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's rough.
While Otacon was there, I have another note here. Okay, before I even tell this joke, do you know anything about the story of The Last of Us Part 2?
No.
Like anything at all?
I saw the trailer.
Okay.
So to that extent, I might know one thing.
I'll probably have to explain this one to you.
Okay. I also didn't play The Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah.
So I'm way behind.
Okay. So Otacon's talking about how he's in love with Sniper Wolf. And that he thinks she's a good person because she likes dogs.
You like dogs? You like dogs?
You like dogs?
Well, what was that?
What was that
Snatch.
from?
Snatch.
Oh, you're right.
It's from Snatch with Brad Pitt. You like dogs? You like dogs?
You like dogs?
Yeah, dogs. Do you like dogs? Dogs. What?
Yeah, dogs.
Dogs. Do you like dogs? Oh, dogs. Sure.
So my comment on this, on him saying that she's a good person because she likes dogs, is seems the creators of The Last of Us Part 2 felt the same way. So,
I mean, I can guess.
Partway through The Last of Us Part 2, I'm not going to give any major spoilers here, so no one needs to worry. You kind of switch and play the role of the villain from that game and see it from her perspective. And the way that they try to... at least in part, they try to endear you to that character. She likes dogs and she pets dogs. And this is supposed to mean she's a good person. And you're supposed to feel conflicted about what she did.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. Anyway, that's all I'll say about that. Apparently, if you like dogs, you're a good person.
If you like dogs, all humans like dogs. Although there are some psychopaths that like will torture animals, but
yeah, that's messed up, dude.
Like you can kind of know that, I guess. Like,
true.
They're not a psychopath.
They're not a good person. Yeah, they're not a psychopath.
But it's been even a trope of like, I guess this isn't a dog, but in Inspector Gadget, there was that bad guy. I'll get you next time, Gadget. But he was always petting a cat.
Oh, yeah.
So he can still be evil. If you like cats, you might still be evil. But if you like dogs, you definitely can't be evil.
That's true, actually. That's true in the world of Saturday morning cartoons.
Exactly, which is kind of what this game is.
Kind of what this game is. Okay, so we said all that already. Deep Throat calls you. He warns you about a bomb that's been planted in your stuff.
Yes, as soon as you get out, all of a sudden he's just like, you have a bomb. You know, how he knows this is difficult to say. But you go through your items and there is. Yeah. But you have to figure it out. And once again, this is the game being like really good and then Deep Throat being like really evasive. And like, I don't know, what could it be? But it's like, you know enough, like give me a hint. No, dude, so you got to scroll through your 50 items or whatever you've got at this point, 20 items, whatever it is. Yeah, grab it. And now I was able to do this, but my guess is you'll get a game over if you don't do it in time.
Yeah, okay. I'm actually not sure about that. I'm not sure how that works. Does it have a timer on it? I don't know.
Or is it just infinite forgiveness and they wait until you find it?
I was watching this scene from one channel where the guy has obviously played the game a lot. And as soon as he gets the on his back, he just goes straight to the thing and throws it away and then goes on. But then, in my own playthrough, you walk out of there and you actually get the call from Deep Throat.
So in that case, you never would have gotten this call.
Yeah.
In that
if that guy didn't see that conversation, he'd already thrown it away. I think it's in the same little... The cargo door that opens with the lasers where you use the cigarettes.
The smoke.
It's like in that little bay area that he calls you and you like throw it away.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, he says, Ocelot, like, I'll get you for this.
There's one more thing from Naomi's conversation, though, that I wanted to bring up. Actually, two more things. But this one is that Naomi throws out the idea of that memory is stored in DNA. And that's in Xenogears.
Yes, it
more
is.
or less. Like the same concept as
Yes,
in
it
Xenogears
is.
with the introns and extrons and whatnot, right?
Introns
and
exons.
Yeah, I think that's funny because these games, Xenogears came out in 98 or 97?
98,
right? I think it was between FF7 and FF8, right?
Yes, and this game also came out in 98.
Yeah, so these came out at the exact same time. There must have just been something must have been in the news in 96 or 97 that was like...
They were all into this at the
memory
same time.
might be stored in your DNA,
your genes, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's fascinating. I'm sure that they hoped by 2020 we'd know the answer to that, and we freaking don't. We still have no idea where memory comes from, where it's stored, or how it works, other than how it's recalled, as you mentioned, protein synthesis.
The creative part of your brain.
Yeah, but what are you recalling in order to recreate? It's like, okay, there's something there, but nobody really knows.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out.
Yeah. But then Snake asks, what is his fate, since she has his entire genetic code?
Oh, right.
And she's like, I don't know.
Yep, I don't know. And he's like, that's right, you're not a fortune teller, you're a scientist.
Exactly. Yeah, yep. Naomi went into the wrong field.
Yeah, I know, man. Should have been a fortune teller.
Yep.
Otacon basically says that later. In the ending we just watched, but...
Yes.
Anyways, we'll get to that much later.
Yeah.
Okay, so... Snake finally gets back to the point where Meryl was shot, all the blood on the ground. Right?
Yeah.
And she's not there anymore. He starts blaming himself for pushing her too hard and all these things like that. Miller cuts in, tells him Snake not to blame himself. It's not like him. I found it personally weird that Campbell refers to Miller as Master too. I wrote that down. Like, why is Campbell calling him Master?
Right.
There was somebody in the comments from the last video who was saying that, or I guess it's 2 videos ago now, who was saying that Master Miller was like his code name. It wasn't like they were referring to him as Sensei Miller. Like Master Miller was like just his foxhound or training name or something like that.
Dude, that's a sick name. I'd rather have Master than freaking like I don't know, like a raven or something, like some bird, Psycho Mantis. Like, no, dude, I'm freaking Master.
Master Miller. So I guess that would be why, if that's the case.
Okay,
because he was saying in the Japanese they say Mastu.
It would be Masta
Mila.
So they don't do Sensei. Mila Sensei. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They don't say Sensei.
They don't. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I guess that was just his code name.
Masta Mila.
Yeah. Right. So Mei Ling cuts in, and she says that it doesn't suit a legend like Snake to be blaming himself like this. Come on. I thought it was funny. I was kind of laughing at this, that Snake, this like very like brooding, hardcore American hero type, right, from like action movies of the 80s, is doing that anime thing where when someone bears their heart out to them, they have to say their name with like ...
Yes,
like
yes. Oh my gosh.
So Mei Ling like bears her heart and he goes, Mei Ling.
Mei Ling.
And then Master Miller says something, Master. It's so funny to me. Like
it is partly of just how Japanese works.
I know, but it just sounds so funny in English when Snake is doing it. Like when I'm watching an anime that's like, I don't know, like some kind of Final Fantasy type thing where it's like clearly not based on like what this game is, which is like American politics, and you know, it's kind of like taking Western influences as its inspiration, but like having that type of character hero like speak like an anime character is really freaking funny to me.
And I think for us that would be more, we would do that in maybe more of like a romantic moment where you say their name.
Yes.
You know, like
almost never does that happen.
Yes.
Like you're saying all these good points to me, and I just go, Kaysen. It feels so weird, dude. It feels so weird.
Oh my gosh.
It feels so fetching weird.
Oh my gosh, you're right. You're totally right.
That's how weird that felt to me, have Snake doing that.
Yeah.
Like it's the last...
And his voice, too.
Yes.
That's not the voice you say that in.
That's the last character in anything I would expect to talk like that.
Yeah, that is so funny. Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Anyway, so I took that note. It's just really weird for Snake to do that. He does it a lot too. He says it to Naomi. He says it to Meryl. He says it to... He doesn't say it to Campbell at any point, but he says it to Master Miller, and he says it to Mei Ling. It's like 4 times he does this. It's just like so weird. So then Naomi begins to try to push Snake into saying that Meryl means more to him than just a war buddy. She's like, she keeps like nagging him about it. Doesn't she mean more than that? Like, because what does she mean to you, kind of thing?
I love his line too. He's like, "Oh yeah, she's great. Yeah, but what is you know, what do you feel? Oh, she's a combat buddy." Who says combat buddy?
Yeah.
Like, what in the world? That is hilarious.
And I'm the whole time I'm sitting there.
Buddy.
Like, this is not the freaking time to be having this conversation.
It's the drama, dude, and it's just like, right now, I gotta know.
We are like hours away from a nuclear strike. Why is this conversation happening at all?
I feel like there is something endearing about when this happens, when it's like you're in the middle of a battlefield, but then the romance is... we've dealt with this in FF8 and in a couple other games as well, where it's like, is now the time? And it's like, you know... Depending on how interesting you want your show to be, your game or whatever it is, your story to be, it might be the perfect time to maximize, you know, tensions and stuff. And
sure. I think a really good time would have been while he's sitting in prison and he can't do anything anyways. Like he's just sitting around waiting for a way to try to break out.
That would realistically make more sense.
Because there was a lot of good dialogue there that was more sentimental, that was more like character building.
Yeah, well, especially after when he's like, talk to me to help me numb the pain.
Right.
Like, yeah, that would have been a decent time to do this. But at the same time, Naomi's idea of him is shifting here.
Yeah.
And I actually, there's something funny about it. I actually am starting to like the romance in Bad Times. Not as a, I don't know how to explain this, not as like a good way to tell your story, but just as a campy way to like have fun during the telling of your story, to make your story fun instead of just being super serious.
If you're going for a Kung Fury feel to it.
Something like that.
It can be
maybe not that
fun.
Intense, but yes.
Well, like we were watching an alternate ending just because neither of us had seen that one.
Yeah, we just kind of...
And we were laughing at it the whole time, but not in a way of like, oh, this is embarrassing, but like it's just funny. Like it's
cliche,
it's lame and cliche, but it's like in a fun way. Like I don't know. It's
fun. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah,
it's like it's still okay.
It's just fun.
Yeah, there's a self-awareness to it, like we've talked about in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and then Meryl thought that, of course, through the conversation, he mentions that Meryl thought she had to become a soldier to get close to her dead father.
Oh, right.
Right, so that's just more genetic determinism stuff. They're really playing up that angle of things.
Couple setups here. So this is a little bit of a setup because Campbell goes, oh, really? Is that what she said? Right?
Oh,
that her wanting to be a soldier was her way of connecting with her father. Mm-hmm. Keep that in mind for later. That was important for Campbell. But also, Naomi talks a little bit more about her extended family here.
Yes, not on purpose. People begin to ask her.
Probed her for the information. Master Miller, in particular, starts taking an interest in this.
Yep.
So she brings up how her Japanese grandfather was an undercover investigator for the FBI in New York during the 50s, taking down like the mafia.
Yes.
And Miller questions her about that. Didn't you say you don't have a family? Any family? She's like, well, you know.
So he didn't get to know him very well.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
He was always away.
He gets really suspicious about this.
Yes.
And they kind of leave that conversation. That's a setup for something, too. So the Campbell thing and Naomi's story about her grandfather are setups for things coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so you climb up this tower. Oh my goodness. This is probably the most annoying part of the game to me. Like, I just don't like this section at all. Because you got guys chasing you from behind as you run up these stairs.
And they're faster than you.
Yes, and then there's guys from up there shooting you. It's just like, it's just way too long.
it is, but there's a great payoff at the very end.
Yeah.
Because, well, is this where we're going to fight?
Liquid.
The helicopter,
at
right?
the top. Yeah.
So, okay, so I'll bring it up as a payoff after that. But yeah, we get all the way to the top. It's annoying. It's ridiculous. But we get to the top, and then there's the helicopter flying by, and it's Liquid Snake, and it's like, hey, time for a boss battle, right? Mm-hmm. So what I thought was so funny is as you're fighting with Liquid Snake, you run back into the building, right? Yep. And Otacon is there.
Yeah, because he throws the rope. And he rappels down the side while he's being shot at. And then he gets back into the other tower, because there's two towers. So there's Tower A and Tower B. He gets into Tower B. That's where Otacon is, because the stairs were destroyed. So he can't go down the stairs. The elevator was not working. He doesn't know how he's going to get down.
But he asks Otacon how he got up.
Yes.
And Otacon says, I took the elevator.
Right.
And Snake's like, the elevator was working. I think that's so funny because of how difficult it is to climb up. Then it's like the elevator was working.
Right.
That's just so funny.
And Otacon was using his invisibility, and so like Snake pulls his gun on him. He's like, no, it's me.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like, can you get this elevator back up here again? And he's like, yeah, I'll go work on the mechanism real quick. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna go swat a bothersome fly, which was
that's what
Liquid Snake from earlier. Liquid's line from earlier in the game, right?
Swat a bothersome fly.
So he goes out to fight the helicopter this time. So you use that stinger, like lock-on grenade launcher thing.
And it'll go even. You have to lock on when you can see it, but I think it'll go even.
It'll
when
go
the
down.
Helicopter goes off of screen. It's
and then
like
come back up and shoot at him. That's a fun fight. That's like one of the more fun boss fights in the game. There's a couple things that Liquid says here. He refers to Snake as a brother, and Snake asks him why he's doing that. Like, why do you call me brother? And this line's really interesting. Liquid says, I'm you. I'm your shadow.
I'm your shadow. Yeah.
For those who haven't seen the Xenogears podcast series,
yes,
we talked a lot about Jung's concept of the shadow.
Yep.
You want to explain that real briefly?
I would love to. Yeah, I'm your shadow in a Jungian sense, right? So the shadow is what Snake Solid could be if he allows himself. So a shadow is all the parts of you that you haven't brought forth as like part of your persona, right? Part of your high up conscious, where it's like, this is who I am. But there's a lot of parts of you that you've repressed and that you've that you hide away, and you say, that's not me, right? You kind of dissociate from it.
Right.
But it is you.
Yeah.
It's in your brain, it's in your psyche, it's part of your mind. And for instance, the capacity to like kill somebody, like that exists within your being. You would deny it and you'd say, I'd never do that. But your shadow is harboring this part of you that can do that and that wants to do that and that wants to kill everyone in the world. I don't know, something like that. Something ridiculous, but it's your shadow, right? This is the idea of Shadow Link, and anytime you see a shadow of a character, it's like, oh, this is the opposite. Yeah. This is who they would be if they would allow their subconscious to like be in charge. And within the shadow is contained other things like the anima or the animus, or there's treasures in the shadow. It's not all bad, right? But there's stuff there that you've repressed that you shouldn't have, maybe. Or that's developed later on and that you just didn't realize it. That's part of your shadow too. And so often what you'll need to do is like go into your shadow, metaphorically speaking, and pull out those good, valuable parts and leave the shady parts where they are. So that's the idea. But Liquid Snake has a shadow as well. And his shadow would be Solid Snake. So they are each other's shadow, but it depends on who we're focusing on as to which one we would refer to as the shadow.
Right.
Because an evil person will have good things in their shadow that they've repressed. All the nice, happy feelings, that's their shadow. Yeah. And so, anyways, there's an interplay there. Just wanted to bring that up too. Yeah. And we talk all about this in Xenogears.
Yep.
It's Carl Jung's stuff.
Watch the Xenogears.
Watch podcast, all of it.
All 21 episodes.
21 episodes, man. You can do it.
So I love Snake's answer to that. So he's like, I'm you. I'm your shadow.
I'm your shadow.
What? He has no idea what he's talking about.
Do you know what a shadow is,
Snake? I don't
Snake?
think Snake's ever read up on Jung before.
Maybe he's not,
And I like Liquid's response. He says, ask the father that you killed. I'll send you to hell to meet him. And then that's when the boss battle starts.
Nice. That's good stuff. I also have to bring up, I love Otacon's Stockholm Syndrome with Sniper Wolf, but there is also a line he says when he reveals himself, when he uninvisibles himself, I guess. He asks Snake if he's ever been in love before. And Snake's like, what are you talking about? And then Otacon's like, no, well, what I'm really trying to say is, can love bloom on the battlefield? Yeah. It's actually kind of a nice saying. Yeah. I thought it was going to be like a really, like he was digging himself a hole with Snake. It's like, do you think two people can fall in love? Or it's like, come on, dude, even if people die. But then he asks, can love bloom on the battlefield? And that's where Snake's like, I think two people at any time can have an experience where they fall in love. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's great. And then he also tells Otacon, like, hey, why don't you, like, how come you're like helping me out so much? I thought you were scared. And he's like, well, when I turn myself invisible, it's like I'm not even there. And then I'm not nervous anymore. He can do anything as long as he's invisible. I think The Incredibles has something like that, with the invisible girl, that she's super confident and upfront as long as she's invisible. But as soon as people can see her, she feels vulnerable and exposed and all that.
I would be remiss to not mention this one-liner, though, as Liquid's helicopter is crashing and burning.
Oh, what was it?
And Snake's looking over the edge. See you in hell, Liquid. That takes care of the cremation.
That's right. Well, that takes care of the cremation. That's so good. That's so good. Oh, even what's that? What's that show where it was always a one-liner and then it would that song would play?
Is that Miami Vice?
Yes, Miami Vice. One of those. Or something Miami.
CSI Miami or something like that.
So good, so good.
And he would put the sunglasses on.
Well, that takes care of the cremation. And that the Who song shows up. Right. That was so good.
It was amazing one-liner there. Otacon then tells Snake that the elevator's fixed, though he didn't have to do anything to fix it. It just started working.
Yes, but as soon as we get on it, it's like, you're over capacity.
Yeah.
And this is so good. I just love it.
So this is the elevator that's going to lead him down into the hangar that's going to take him to Metal Gear, right? He's on his way there. This conversation's really long, and these dudes are just standing here invisible, waiting for him to realize.
And as soon as he realizes, then they make their move. It's like, dudes, you had the drop on him, man. You had beat.
They're just waiting patiently for him to realize that there's invisible people around.
That is very honorable of them.
But he says something about like it being over capacity, and Otacon's like, yeah, that was strange. Like, I only weigh like 160 pounds, but it said like it's over capacity.
It's like 1,000 pounds is capacity,
I didn't know what to make of that.
Otacon. Oh, and then I love how his realizes too.
Yeah, he's like,
they're in the
elevator with you right now. And he's like screaming it into the camera.
And you kind of had figured this out by now, I'm sure, right? And it's the call is coming from inside the house. Like it's that moment. And I love it. It's cliche. It's just like.
It's pretty cool.
It's typical, but it's cool. And then you're just like, boom, you're fighting all these dudes and they stay
You can use the thermal goggles to see their body heat, and then you can actually see them running around. And you can fight them.
This game's really cool. Like, there's a lot of different ways to figure stuff out and get around things. That's super cool. I didn't do that. You can kind of see where they are
move,
without
there's a little
the thermal.
Bit of like a distortion or something.
Yeah, it was hard, but I was just trying to rely on that.
Yeah, but if you put on the thermal goggles, you'll see their body heat, and you can actually attack them and see where they're at.
Nice.
Pretty cool. So he comes out of that elevator. This is another one where I thought the Twin Snakes version of the cutscene was a little better than the PS1. Because he just, you see him through like the barrel of Sniper Wolf's rifle, and
Yes.
she's like right on him, and he
Yes.
just gets fetching shot like bam, like right back, and he doesn't like move. He just turns around and calls Otacon and goes on like nothing happened. It's just like you just got fetching shot.
We've
with
been
a
shot
sniper
before.
Rifle.
We've been shot before.
In the Twin Snakes version, it's like he gets some sort of sense like, oh no, something's wrong, and he moves,
And the shot misses.
goes past, and then he dives into cover.
His
on the
snaky
side.
senses were.
Right.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked that better in the Twin Snakes version. to be
Okay,
honest.
okay.
Rather than just taking like a freaking like direct hit.
Yes.
And just
I
like
don't know,
being
man.
knocked back and then getting up, Otacon.
Otacon.
She's here somewhere.
That's hilarious.
It's Wolf, she's there.
And then she shows up on our
Yeah, she starts talking.
on the call, and she looks like Nicole Kidman,
She does.
like a lot like.
That's
Nicole
actually
Kidman.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maybe
And-
that's who they model her
I would
after.
guess that
Yeah.
that would be it. Yeah.
Otacon's begging Snake not to kill her. She's like talking about how she's going to kill
And
him.
Snake's like, "Are you crazy?" Like, dude.
Just got shot.
Once again, like nuclear war is about to happen, and you're
Yeah.
like, "But I like the person, the bad guy," and it's
Yeah.
like, dude, like, please, man, please, priorities.
And she
But once
starts,
again, I actually like that
Yeah,
because it's
right.
fun for the.
Right.
It's just fun.
and she starts talking about what she's going to kill Snake, and he's telling her, Otacon's telling her like, no, don't do it. Wolf.
Yes,
Like,
don't do it.
Don't
Yeah, yeah.
fight. Listen. Anyway,
It's like Mommy and
this
Daddy.
battle's kind of fun.
It's pretty
you
cool.
can
Yeah.
do it the way that I think maybe the game intends you to do it, which is another sniper battle where she's kind of going behind different trees.
Yes.
And you're just like sniping.
Oh,
back
can
and
you
forth.
get closer to her?
Well, no.
suppose you could.
But you
Oh,
could
okay.
use the missile that you can
Oh, of
direct
course.
around.
Yeah, yeah.
And she never sees it coming.
Yeah,
It's like,
nice.
dirt,
It is pretty slow too. It goes slower than you walk, right? It's like pretty slow.
Just
That's
like
funny.
take her out. But
Wow.
anyways, there's a couple different ways, like always,
Okay.
to finish these battles. But as she's lying there dying,
Yeah, as she's dying, this is interesting.
she
stuff.
asks Snake to finish her quickly. She says she's a Kurd.
Yes, and my understanding is that the Kurds and the Soviets did not get along very well.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but so if she knew about Ocelot's thing, then maybe she wouldn't be happy, and
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
she
know.
doesn't know, or maybe she's just okay with it.
I don't know.
Yeah, but she's a Kurd from I think it was Iraq, right, or Turkey.
Turkey. Was it Turkey?
There's Kurds in both. There's like a place that could be called Kurdistan that's like northern Iraq and like just like
Yeah,
a
I
corner
can't remember
part
if
of
she
Turkey
says
or Iran
for
maybe. a little.
sure, but
Yeah, I can't remember either. But so she calls herself a Kurd, and then Snake says, "Oh, no wonder your name is Wolf."
yeah.
I didn't know what that meant, right?
Oh,
So I had to dive down to figure that out.
that being why her name
Why,
is Wolf.
like, oh, you're a Kurd, that's why your name is Wolf. What does Kurd have to do with Wolf? That's the question.
I don't know if I looked into that.
Okay, so I did some research, but I wasn't able to find anything conclusive, like nothing for sure. But what I found was the Turkish word for wolf is Kurd, but it's an epithet. It's not the Kurds wouldn't call themselves that.
Oh, okay.
Or it's Kurd. I think it's with a T. The Kurds they call them wolves as a negative. It's like an epithet, right?
Oh, like
And-
a war dog. Like he
Something
goes
like
into-
dogs, yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And so but maybe they do call themselves that because of that reason. If there's anybody of Kurdish ancestry who knows about the any of this, like why the connection between the Kurd and the wolf that isn't just the Turkish one that I mentioned, please let me know. I'm fascinated by this because they knew something and said something that I don't understand other than, it could be that they were like, oh, the Turkish word for Kurd means wolf. But then in Japan, them not knowing that, oh, but that's not a nice word. A Kurdish person wouldn't take that as a compliment. I don't think. I could be wrong about that, but that's my brief research has kind of shown me that.
Okay.
But the word itself, Kurd itself, the way that they refer to themselves would be more of a Persian word of Iranian descent, and it means like nomad. So, and then there's a similar word in Arabic that means nomad or wanderer, right? So, I don't know why Snake feels like Kurd means wolf, but he does. So,
All right.
That's
if
all I
anybody
got.
knows,
that's what I got.
hit us up. So there's a couple of interesting things she says. So she always dreamed of a peaceful place like this where she's dying.
Yes.
She says she was
and
raised...
you could hear wolves in the background, like, oh, howling.
In the Twin Snakes version, they actually come up. They actually walk up and they're actually around her when she's
that's
dying.
kind of cool.
That's another difference.
Okay.
So she said she was raised on the battlefield, hunted like dogs, gunfire and screams were her lullabies. I thought that was kind of cool.
Right, yeah, that's good.
She refers to Big Boss, who saved her from that life, as Saladin.
Yeah,
she calls him Saladin. So I looked into this.
Salad means salt.
So this guy was basically a Sunni Muslim Kurd who became the first sultan of both Egypt and Syria.
Saladin was?
Yep, and was the founder of the, I don't know how to pronounce it, Ayyubid dynasty. Ayyubid dynasty. Saladin led the Muslim military campaign against the Crusader states in the Levant.
So it was during that time. Okay.
During the Third Crusade. So she's referring to him as Saladin. Big Boss is Saladin. That's what it's a reference to.
And so to the Kurds, Saladin is a great hero.
A revered war hero / sultan from ancient times.
So that wouldn't have been a reference to his actual name. That was more or less an honorary.
Yes.
Like
she thought of him as being like Saladin, and so she called him that.
Huh.
And Snake just happens to, I guess, intuit that she's talking about Big Boss.
Yeah, and he must know a lot about the Kurds, He must know all about that.
Because she says Saladin, he's like, Saladin, you mean Big Boss? It's like, how did you figure that out?
All right.
But anyway, so yeah, Big Boss is the one who saved her from that life, right? And so she joined a group of revolutionaries to take revenge on the world. I've shamed my people and myself. I'm no longer the wolf I was born to be. In the name of vengeance, I sold my body and my soul. Now I'm nothing more than a dog. And so Snake assures her she's not just a dog. And then she turns to him and says, who are you? Are you Saladin? So Snake, as far as we know, and Liquid are the sons of Big Boss. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
So she sees a resemblance in him to Big Boss.
What I wrote down for that is that we became her hero.
Yes, right. She also tells Snake that she didn't kill Meryl, so Meryl's still alive. So it's like, oh, great, awesome. She's not dead like I thought she was. Earlier, when he found the bloodstain on the ground, he thought she was dead. She says, I finally understand I wasn't waiting to kill people. I was waiting for someone to kill me.
Oh, and that's how we became her hero. Yeah,
right. A man like you, you're a hero. Please set me free. And Otacon runs in. Why? I love you. And he gives her gun. And so she's holding that.
It's when he shows up that she says, everyone is here, right?
Yeah, something like that.
And so it's almost as if she actually maybe kind of did like Otacon, at least a little bit, that he was an important enough person for her to feel like it would be nice if he was there when she died.
Yeah.
And then they give her a handkerchief or something.
Yeah, the handkerchief was one of the things Otacon gives you through
early
the cell with the
That's right.
With the ketchup and the food.
Yeah.
And you can if you equip that handkerchief, you can also get through the dogs, that section.
Oh, because it has the scent.
Yeah, the scent of what's her name? Of Sniper Wolf on it.
Dude, this game's cool.
Yeah, right. So they won't attack you if you have that handkerchief on.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So he gives it back. He puts it on her face and says, I don't need this anymore. And you give back.
Yeah.
And then Otacon turns away as Snake puts a bullet in her head.
Yeah.
And he says goodbye. And that's when he asks Snake, you said, or he, I guess not asks, but says, you said love can bloom on a battlefield, but I couldn't save her. That's when Snake gives back the handkerchief. Snake tells him that, wait, what did I write here? Oh, they might not meet again is what I meant. So he tells Otacon they may not meet again. Like this might be the last time that they meet. He's going down to try to destroy or disable Metal Gear.
We're kind of going into the big facility now,
Yeah, and he's like, you should get out of here, like leave.
Yeah.
Get out as fast as you can. Get a head start on a new life. And Otacon calls after him like, Snake, what are you fighting for? What was she fighting for?
That's right.
What should I be fighting for? And Snake says, if we live through this, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you, yeah.
And then Otacon says, okay, I'll be searching too, and he runs off. And he decides he's going to stay and try to help. He's not going to run away, right? This is where you go down into the hangar where Metal Gear actually is. Now,
that's the end of disc 1.
That is the end of disc 1.
So that took us longer to recap than I thought.
Yeah. Okay, so Campbell calls in to Snake as he's descending into the facility, right? Informs him that negotiations have ceased between the American government and the terrorists.
Yeah.
Basically, they're not talking anymore. Like, they're not going to give in to the demands. Like, you're the last hope to stop this. And Snake asks why they're being so inflexible. And he accuses Campbell of hiding more from him, right?
Yeah.
And Campbell just pleads with Snake, just focus on stopping them. Like,
just do your job.
It's so funny to me that, again, going back to that briefing, original cutscene where Campbell explains the whole mission to him before the game actually starts. One of the conditions that Snake accepted the mission was you have to tell me everything, no more secrets.
Yes, yeah.
And literally like hundreds of secrets.
No, tons, too many to count. Yeah.
Just like didn't tell him anything. Kept everything from him the whole time. And he keeps apologizing for it.
Yeah.
So Miller calls in to inform Snake that Naomi Hunter's story about her grandfather was BS.
Yep, she's lying.
Completely not true. Yep. So he talks about, first of all, was it Roosevelt?
J. Edgar Hoover.
Or Hoover.
Who ran the FBI.
Hoover was running the FBI during that time period. He was a known racist.
For like 40 years, yeah.
Yeah, a known racist who would never have hired a Japanese investigator.
Yes.
And so, like,
racist,
that doesn't
but
make
also
any sense.
We were at war with Japan when he was the FBI director.
Right.
Yeah, but yes.
So, like, that makes no sense. Also, the operations or the investigations against the mafia happened in Chicago, not in New York.
And it was a year later.
And it was a different time.
Yeah.
It's like everything about this story is off.
Yes.
Like, she's definitely lying. She's a spy. And it's like, oh man, like, that's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So he just tells you to, like, I'll keep looking into this, like, you know, just watch your back, like, be careful about her, like, she's not who she says that she is. She's not who she purports to be.
Yeah.
You go down into this, like, frozen underground warehouse, and this is where you come across Vulcan Raven for the second battle.
Yes. So he's fascinating because he talks about the Cossacks.
Yes.
He calls us a Cossack. Snake a Cossack. So Snake, I guess, has a genetic history going back to Eastern Europe, something like that. Because the Cossack region would be in Russia.
So this is kind of confusing because Raven is also from Alaska.
Okay, so I got you, yeah.
He was, like, born and raised in Alaska. He competed in the Alaskan Indian Olympics he talks about.
Yes, that's right.
Which is a real thing, by the way.
And
so, but he says his ancestors had come over the Bering Strait,
yes,
when it was frozen over, right? Which is where we assume the American Native American Indians came from.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, he's saying that you also have heritage from the East, and I think what he's referring to is Snake's Japanese heritage.
Oh, Snake has that?
Yes.
Oh, but he calls us a Cossack, though.
Hold on, let me
I mean,
look
that's
that
just
up
the
again.
word is Cossack. I don't know where Snake's from.
Because I read that and I was like, wait, he's Japanese? What the fetch?
It could be that, because there's the Inuit of Alaska are similar to the Ainu
Ainu
of Japan, yeah.
Right.
So that could be something.
I think that's what it's about. Hold on, let me see what he says here. Yeah, so Vulcan Raven was born to Native Alaskan American and Inuit parents. So he was born in Alaska. It says he graduated from University of Alaska, spent a few more years living in his homeland. He took part in the Eskimo Indian Olympics, not Alaska Indian Olympics, at Fairbanks every year. He won many muktuk eating and ear pull contests. So they do the ear pulling in the cold. It's like a endurance sort of like, competition.
That's funny.
An event where two opponents pull on each other's ear while enduring the harsh cold, intended to test both spiritual and physical strength. He was also alleged to have excelled in the 4-man carry event, having been able to accomplish it with 6 men. as well as having won it as well as the stick pull for 3 straight years. So he was a beast in these games. He joined the Soviets. That's where he met Revolver Ocelot. Okay, let me keep going down here. Shadow Moses incident. Okay, so it says here, Raven also commented on Snake's ancestors having originated in Mongolia, similar to himself.
Yes.
And that he possessed blood from the East, referring to Snake's Japanese heritage.
Oh, okay. All right.
So let me click on that and see where that goes. Metal Gear Solid Konami Computer Entertainment, 1998.
No, it's a magazine that probably doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, it's the game itself.
Oh, what? It doesn't say that he's Japanese. We could at least bring up that
the Raven has put the mark of death upon you. Blood from the East flows within your veins. Your ancestors too were raised on the barren plains of Mongolia. Inuit and Japanese are cousins to each other. We have many of the same ancestors.
I must have missed that then.
That's what he says. That's what Raven says.
Okay. Then you're right. Then that is it. Okay.
Inuit and Japanese are cousins to each other. We share many of the same ancestors, you and I.
Gotcha. I had missed that. I took that to mean the Mongolians, because there's a group of the Mongolians that kind of came to Europe from the Huns,
right?
More famously from the East, and I thought that was what he was referring to. So Snake is part Japanese. That's fascinating. So is Naomi Hunter.
Yeah, and obviously Mei Ling. Mei Ling's Chinese.
She's Chinese, but similar.
They're all from the East.
They would all have similar ancestry, along with Vulcan Raven here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. He calls us a Cossack, though, but whatever. Anyways,
that's true.
That's fine. Just making sure that the Cossacks are modern-day Russia kind of place.
Okay. Anyway, you end up fighting him. This fight's kind of interesting. Like, he's holding this giant Gatling gun. He's like walking around, and you have to like sneak behind him and shoot him, and then you run and hide in the things, and then come behind him and shoot him again.
Once again, I got to mention though that because Vulcan Raven is bringing up the ancestry, he's making a connection with the genes.
Yes,
and he's more or less trying to suggest that because you and I have similar genes at some point in our past, that means we're similar, or there's some like similarity there. There's like you and I aren't too different.
Right.
But yeah, more genes talk.
Once you beat him,
this is fascinating.
There's some good dialogue here.
Yeah.
He says, "You are a snake which was not created by nature. You and the boss, you are from another world, a world that I do not wish to know."
Now, the idea of a snake not having been created by nature, is that specific to some Inuit mythology?
I don't know, because I don't know anything about Inuit mythology, but...
Me neither, and I don't know.
But knowing where the game is going at this point, without spoilers, I know what he's referring to, not being created by nature. But that would be interesting if there's like a double meaning to this dialogue, right? Yes.
I don't know that I'd be able to find that out very quickly, but there is a famous world serpent, just like the Norse have Jormungandr is like in the waters encircling the world, and it's the Ouroboros. The Alaskan, this is fascinating. It's called Titseruk, and it's a snake that lives in the water that eats its own tail. It's kind of like one of their mythical creatures.
Basically their version of Ouroboros?
Probably. The Ouroboros is in every culture in the world, so I think that's fascinating stuff. But I don't have... I can't... it would probably take me a little while to learn, so maybe in the next episode I'll be able to have some research on
that.
What that may... Because that might be relevant to Snake's name there, but the idea that snakes were not... So it almost sounds like within the mythology that he is familiar with, snakes were not created but snuck in, right? Sort of like the Garden of Eden, right? You got the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, and then, where'd the snake come from? Like it snuck in, right? It wasn't supposed to be there. Something like that. And so snake is the thing that's not supposed to exist. He shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But he's referencing a different mythology, so I'll have to look into that.
He also tells you that the DARPA chief, who we spoke to earlier, was not Donald Anderson. We were not talking to Donald Anderson. that was actually Decoy Octopus.
Yes.
One of the other Foxhound members.
Yes, who we never meet.
We never, aside from that conversation, who we thought was Donald Anderson.
Technically we met him, but we don't know even what he looks like.
No.
Yeah, we know nothing about that guy.
And so this is where it comes together that the DARPA chief's body in the cell, which was decomposing and had been dead a long time and had all the blood sucked out.
For a while.
What Decoy Octopus does is he takes the blood from the victim and then he all the way down to like that level, he is copying exactly
the genes, right?
Yes, the genetic level. He's copying exactly. His disguise is like perfect.
It's like even better than Mission Impossible. but with that comes some negative side effects. But maybe we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and Snake asks why Decoy Octopus would go to such a length, to impersonate the DARPA chief. Like, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
And he doesn't tell you. He says you'll have to basically solve the rest by yourself.
Yep.
And then he dies.
As his birds slowly begin to eat his
they're
flesh.
they're like freaking eating him.
Yes, and he's like
nothing
talking to us as we walk away, as the birds are eating him.
Yeah.
And he tells us we shall have no peace.
Yep.
And then we turn around and the guns are just sitting there and the birds fly.
They literally ate the bones too.
Yeah.
There's no bones left, dude. There's nothing left.
Some of those birds are going to have a rough time in the near future.
Seriously.
But yeah, that's crazy. That is sort of the return to nature, right? He was happy to return back to nature.
After this, Miller calls in again, asking if he's on a secure line, if the monitor's off.
Yeah.
But Campbell's like, wait a minute, what is this you're saying about Naomi? Tell me too. And so Miller ends up revealing that Naomi is a spy who is impersonating Dr. Naomi Hunter. The person we know is not actually Dr. Naomi Hunter. Dr. Naomi Hunter actually disappeared in the Middle East quite some time ago. So she stole, whoever this is, stole that identity.
Probably like a while ago.
Yeah. He says that he thinks her involvement was directly tied to the mysterious deaths of the DARPA chief and the arms tech president. So Naomi Hunter is the one who assassinated them, according to Miller.
Yes.
Campbell lets it slip that if she is a spy, that they're in really big trouble. And
yes, and Snake's like, what do you know about, what have you been talking to each other about that I don't know?
Yeah.
And Campbell's like, I'll tell you later. Thanks, Campbell. Great
once
leader.
Again,
great leader.
Thanks for leaving me out of the loop.
Yeah.
So he says, I'm going to go find her, interrogate her, arrest her, whatever. We'll get this worked out on our end. Just keep going. So Snake then enters the hangar where Metal Gear is stored, and Otacon calls him on the codec. Says that he overheard the enemy talking about how they're moving forward with the launch and that Metal Gear is ready. And Snake says, but there's nobody in this hangar at all. It's empty.
Right, it's totally empty.
Really quiet down here. It doesn't seem like anybody's preparing for anything. And Otacon then tells him he's going to be hacking into Baker's president of the Armtechs, Kenneth Baker, his private files to see if they can find any more information on where those other 2 card keys are at.
Yep.
And what the special trick is. That's something I forgot to mention. Ocelot mentions this while you're being tortured.
Oh, yeah.
That it's not just about having the keys. There's also some kind of special trick with them that is necessary to actually deactivate Metal Gear. And so, he's going to try and figure that out by hacking into Baker's private files. So he calls you back shortly after that and says that basically Metal Gear's railgun allows these nuclear missiles to forego rocket propulsion entirely, which makes them invisible to radar and sonar.
You would just have to have really good mathematics and physics and everything, because once you shoot it, it's
just going to lob.
It's just lobbing. You're basically lobbing it. But I'm sure you could get it pretty dang high and really far using a railgun. So that's kind of crazy.
So it's basically a stealth nuke.
Yeah.
That's what Metal Gear is capable of. It's capable of launching from anywhere in the world, stealth nukes.
And you know what's crazy though? Wouldn't the gun itself be, why the fact that it's attached to this moving robot, but the railgun.
Yeah.
and the design of the nuke. That's the important part, right?
Yes.
But then there's this big walking robot that's just kind of attached to it.
Yes.
I just think that's kind of funny. You could probably make a ton of those railguns and a ton of those nukes without having to make Metal Gear.
I guess the idea is that it can go anywhere.
Well, I bet
it can walk on rough terrain and go into the middle of nowhere and then shoot it.
I guess with if you're doing this with a railgun, you wouldn't have the long range like ICBM reach.
Yeah.
You'd probably have to get close to it and then shoot.
I still don't know why that would be more effective than just a stealth bomber.
Yeah, just a plane. Oh my gosh, a plane that can launch nukes. Yeah, a walking robot that can launch nukes. Well, the launching the nukes, that's the thing.
Yes. Right? You can do that from 60,000 feet or whatever.
Or even satellites, yeah.
So, yeah. A satellite would be way scarier than a walking tank.
A walking mech robot is cool, so we'll forgive it.
Well, I guess now that I think about it, maybe, I don't know, would it be easier to locate a satellite than to locate a random walking tank somewhere in the mountains?
Well, satellites are just exposed, but they're really far away.
Yeah.
But they don't hide or anything. So, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know which is easier. They're both probably not easy.
If you launched a satellite and you told nobody about it, and it's got a railgun that is undetectable, would you just be able to that came from a satellite somewhere? Would you be able to find it, or would it be just as difficult to find that as it would be a walking tank in the mountains?
I have no idea.
In Alaska,
no idea.
How would you?
I do know there's just thousands and thousands of satellites that are out there.
Right.
So it's if you launch one, I'm sure you could get away with something, and nobody would really know what it is.
That just seems like it would be better than a walking tank.
But walking tanks are mechs, and mechs are cool. Yeah, mechs are sweet.
Anyway, so he basically reveals that that's what it is. It's a stealth nuke, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And Campbell knew this all along, and he didn't say anything to us.
Yep.
And he keeps saying, "I'm sorry."
I'm sorry, Snake.
I'm sorry.
Okay, dude.
Okay, there's a really long conversation here between Liquid and Ocelot, and there's a lot of important stuff.
Oh, is this when we walk up to the
so Snake sort of passes by them and is pressed up against the door, and he's listening in as they're talking. This is where a lot of stuff is revealed, so this may take probably the remainder of this episode.
Okay.
And we'll probably stop right after this.
Sounds good.
So, he's saying, Liquid is saying that, or he's asking, and Liquid is asking for a report, and Ocelot is reporting. So, it's revealed that the PAL has been entered.
Yes.
Liquid wants to change the target from Chernatan, Russia, to Lopnor, China.
Yeah.
So that they were originally going to strike Russia where there was in the middle of nowhere is nothing. Or wait, no, that's not true. Sorry, I misinterpreted what Ocelot said originally.
This is the reverse.
They were going to hit Russia, which would have caused a big stir. It would have been a civilian target, and a lot of people would have died. Now they're changing it to Lopnor, China, and Ocelot is saying, but that's in the middle of nowhere. What's the point of that?
Right.
Liquid says that it has a nuclear testing facility or something like that, and if that explodes, the populace of the Earth will not find it that suspicious. You can hide it from them, but the governments, China is going to get way pissed. And they'll know that the Americans just hit one of our nukes, nuclear testing sites with a nuke. What is that all about? We're just about to sign START 3.
Yeah.
And then the Americans will have to reveal we didn't do that. These terrorists did that, who were using our and that's the whole thing.
But we were developing the thing that the terrorists
took. That will have to be revealed to China, and that's
not good for
really
America.
bad. And that's the way they're trying to pressure the U.S. to give in to their demands. So that's the plan here.
Yeah.
The plan is we're going to hit that target. And we're still going to kind of be able to keep not cause total mayhem, but it will really pressure the United States to give over Big Boss's remains. They'll know that we're serious and we're going to make things really, really bad.
China could do that better than Russia could at this point, something like that.
Right. So that's kind of his plan with that. That's why he decides to change the the target. He also says, basically, the Americans will have to do that to appease China in order to avoid a retaliatory strike from China. Yeah. Because they would want to, strike in retaliation, and they'll say, it wasn't us, it was the terrorists, they took our Metal Gear.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what are you talking about? And then they'd have to reveal everything, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Liquid is also now including, as part of his demands, he's added to it a vaccine
for fox dye,
a virus called fox dye.
Yeah.
And he asks about Ocelot's contact within the Russian government. I guess it's Colonel Sergei Gurlukovich.
Okay.
Gurlukovich. This is the guy who had given them the Hind D, right? He still wants to buy the Metal Gear, but he wants to see it in action first. He wants to make sure, before he commits to buying it, right?
Yeah.
So Liquid's he's a very prudent man, this and that. But he says something really interesting here. He says he has no interest in seeing the revival of Mother Russia directly to Ocelot.
Yes. Yeah.
Who had just told us that's all he cares about here is
Yes.
seeing Russia revive.
And they'd give it to this guy who's just a businessman. He'd probably just turn around and sell it too.
Yeah. So I guess we should talk about fox dye before we get too much further into this. So
Yeah.
fox dye is what killed Baker and Decoy Octopus, who was disguised as Donald Anderson.
DARPA chief, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fox dye it was injected into the certain people.
The nanomachines.
Yeah. That's right, yeah, the nanomachines.
that these people
Naomi
were doing.
Hunter has something to do with
Yes.
the nanomachines that were injected.
Right.
But yeah, the fox dye, it just kind of, I still don't know if somebody's in control of it or not. It seems that way, but it just kills you after a certain amount of time.
My understanding of this is that, and I don't know if this is revealed quite yet. It might be just after this, but I don't care. I'm just going to say it. If you have not played past this part yet, play past this part so that you can learn this. Because we got to discuss it in this conversation. It's it's key to understanding what's going on. Naomi gave fox dye to Solid Snake in the injection she gave him at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
The nanomachines and the peptide that keeps him warm and all that, fox dye was given to him, and he was meant to spread it to all of these foxhound dudes and to kill them. It's programmed specifically to target certain people. So even though you can spread it to anyone he comes in contact with,
it won't kill
it's not
everyone.
going to kill everyone. It's only designed to kill certain people.
And that's why it's shortly after Snake comes into contact with certain people.
Yes.
They die.
Right. So this is why Otacon does not die.
Yeah.
And he was all worried about it, oh, you feel okay? Because Otacon was not targeted as one of the people for fox dye to kill. It's programmed to do that. But it was programmed to kill Donald Anderson. It was programmed to kill Baker. So he unwittingly took this virus and started spreading it. So that's why Liquid is including the vaccine to fox dye now in the demands, and he didn't do that before. If they had all had fox dye before, then he would have included it originally. He has to do that now because Snake brought fox dye in this infiltration.
And they're all vulnerable.
Now they all have it.
Yeah.
And they don't know who's being targeted by it. So that's what that is.
Now, the idea of a vaccine is that you take the vaccine before you get the thing. If you've already got the thing, the vaccine wouldn't do all that much. But maybe he just means cure. I don't know.
Yeah, more like a cure.
Need the cure.
Okay, so during this conversation, Ocelot is looking at a monitor, and he actually sees that Snake is standing outside the door.
Yes.
He knows he's there.
Yes.
And he keeps talking. So he asks Liquid, Ocelot does, if he's worried about the nuke being overridden. And Liquid asks, well, did Snake know about the override system? And Ocelot says the Snake did not have any keys on him, which is really interesting because he took the key from him.
Yeah, that's right. And he was like, where are the other two?
And it was
We
still,
only
I
have
think
one.
it's still included in the stuff that you picked back up when you left the cell.
Right.
But like Snake told him, I only have one key, I think, right? Didn't he
Yeah,
tell
I
him
think
that?
so, because he was, Ocelot was expecting 3 keys. And
I'm trying to remember, did Snake lie about that, or did he say he had 1 key?
he
would have been able
said
to
he
go-
only had 1.
He would be able to go through his stuff
Yeah.
and see it
And
there
Ocelot
anyways.
said, okay, never mind then. Ocelot just
Yes.
kind of believed us.
He's like, well, even if you had all 3, there'd be a trick you'd have to know to make it work anyway.
Something like that.
Anyway, point is, he for some reason he tells Liquid that Snake didn't have any keys when he should have known that he did. Ocelot asks if Liquid wants Meryl killed, and Liquid says to keep her alive for now. So then Otacon calls Snake to inform him that the trick to using the key is that it is made from a shape memory alloy, and that it will shift at different temperatures
At
and
different temperatures.
shapes.
Yeah.
So when you warm it up, it's the right shape for one of the keys
Yeah.
to work in one of the. There's like 3 computer consoles.
Yeah. But 1 card is all 3 keys.
Yes, all 3 keys are in one.
Yep.
I thought that was really cool.
That was cool. I liked that.
That
Yeah.
was a really cool reveal. So at room temperature, it'll be 1. When you cool it down, it will be a different shape.
Yeah.
And when you heat it up, it'll be a different shape. And that's how you get all 3 keys. So essentially, Snake has to like go back. He has to backtrack.
I didn't like this though. Okay, so I
Yes.
liked the concept of the
Yes.
warm cold thing, but I didn't like having to actually go back and
Yes.
do this part. I actually have I took 0 notes for the whole going back and
backtracking
doing
part.
stuff. Yeah.
There are
So-
a couple of conversations when you're trying to get the 3rd key done.
Okay.
But as he's having this conversation with Otacon, his elbow is kind of popping out from behind the door, and Ocelot like shoots at him.
Yeah, Ocelot sees
With
and
his-
shoots the
with
card.
with his non-shooting
So with
hand.
his other
with his,
hand,
with
left
his
hand.
left hand.
Yeah, his left hand.
And Snake drops the key and it falls down. He's like, no, the key.
So we got to go get the key, then we have
Yeah.
to go all the way back. So yeah, it's games do this sometimes when they're short games and they want to be long games. And the
make
game
you
isn't
just
that long,
go
but
back.
I could tell that this was a bit forced on the gameplay.
It's a way of, what do they call it, padding out the game time a little
yes,
bit.
so that people feel like
To
they got
run back in that
8 hours
freezer
worth.
where you fought Vulcan Raven and like
Yeah,
chill out
yeah.
in there for a while.
Yeah, you have
until
to wait
the
a
key
while.
Changes shape.
Yes, and
go
apparently
use it.
yeah.
You have to go
And
back
then
to the hot room.
The hot room, yeah.
Change your shape again. You got to run back and use it. Oh, the other key thing that Otacon says is that this key can be used either way. It can only be used once, right? You use it one time to
Yeah.
either override it when it's been activated, and
Right.
then it's done, and you can't use the key again,
Yeah.
or to activate it. Either way, if you don't have the PAL codes, right, you can still
You can
activate
activate
it
it
with this key
with those
one
cards.
time, and then you would use the PAL codes to override.
Yep.
So it goes both ways, kind of a thing,
Yep.
right? So that's one of the things he tells you. Now, what Liquid said, or what Liquid asked and that Ocelot said in the conversation was the PAL codes have been entered.
Yeah, they made it
And
seem like
It's
Yeah.
it's activated, like the launch is proceeding. But when you actually get back and you insert the keys,
it says launch
you
initiated.
realize
Yeah.
that they tricked you
Yes.
because they never got the PAL code from Donald Anderson because
Yep,
he
yep,
died
yep.
without giving the information.
Yep.
They tricked you into getting the keys and activating the warhead.
And now they can launch it.
And now there's
And they
no way to
used
stop
us to figure out how to. They didn't know how the keys worked,
it. Right.
and we were able to figure it out because of Otacon, I think, right?
Yeah.
They-
Because
they- they didn't have-
into
they didn't have an
Anderson's files,
Yeah, yeah.
private files.
So that was actually very shocking for me.
Yes.
When we did that, I was like, "Oh no, freaking way!"
Yes.
I was pretty shocked.
This is probably the most brilliant moment of Metal Gear Solid to me.
Yeah.
Maybe outside of the Psycho Mantis. That's more memorable, but not like.
Oh sure.
Like just really well done
Yeah,
storytelling.
this one was like, "Oh my gosh."
I've done a video on the channel where I talk about how good or really well executed plot twists are likened to the sleight of hand of a magician, like a stage
Oh
magician or
yes,
something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah. There's like a 3-act structure.
Yeah. Yes, they really are kind of showing you the whole time, if you're looking in the right place, what they're doing. But the deception, the sleight of hand that directs your attention over here, keeps you from seeing it until the moment they want you to see it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did.
That's smart. Yeah, it's really good.
That's plot twists.
You could have known, and that's more fulfilling than they just randomly tricked you.
Gave you new information that you never could have picked up on the whole time.
Yeah.
That's when plot twists really, really work.
Yeah,
is when they gave you the breadcrumbs the whole time.
Yep.
But you were distracted by the sleight of hand.
Yeah.
And then when they reveal it, you look back and go, oh, look at that trail that I just didn't look at. Oh my gosh, it was right there in front of my nose.
It makes the world feel a little bit more real, a little more thought out, a little more tangible.
And this, to me, is the brilliance of, like, the most brilliant part, I would say, of Metal Gear Solid's story, is the way that they reveal that Master Miller is actually Liquid. Because Liquid
that was crazy.
Liquid was casting doubt on Naomi Miller. That's the sleight of hand.
Yep. And
even though she is suspicious, even though she is not who she says she is, all that's true.
Yes.
This was Liquid's way of keeping you looking there instead of at him, instead of at the crumbs that are in front of you, about Otacon saying, well, this will actually activate the warhead you're going to, since it's already been, the PAL codes had been entered already, which they hadn't been because Liquid knew from the beginning they didn't get the PAL code from Anderson. This was Psycho Mantis's great idea. Send Decoy Octopus to tell Snake they have the PAL codes. I gave the PAL code to them.
Right.
Psycho Mantis came into my mind and I couldn't resist it. I gave it away.
Resist.
That was the lie.
Yeah.
That was the lie that we believed.
It started the whole thing.
We took that bait.
Yes.
Right? That was the first deception. And so because we believed that, all the way up to now, we didn't look at the detail.
And even when we found out that the DARPA chief wasn't really who we thought he was, we did not think to rethink the conversation we had with the DARPA chief that put all of this in motion.
It was just
At least
enough.
I didn't.
Just a short enough scene, even though, because they didn't show his face. The DARPA chief is kind of like back on the table, and he has the same tie, and he has the same like shirt and clothes.
Yes.
And I remember looking and going, oh, that's a DARPA chief. But it almost feels like that moment could have jeopardized this twist.
Yes, that was risky for them to put that in.
But it was just little enough, I think, for most people to not catch it.
Yeah.
And then to get to this moment and go like, oh my goodness, they never got that PAL code, they just tricked me into doing it.
Right. And you could have known before this point.
Yes. And I mean, you could have known, not only just from Snake's point of view, they took you out of Snake's point of view and put you in Liquid's point of view for a second.
Yes.
And even still,
even
still, most people probably didn't see this coming.
Very well done. Very good.
So it's just really well done. Really, really, really well done. This is my favorite part of the game, was kind of this moment. And then Master Miller unties his hair and like lets it down.
And it was the same. The whole time. It was the same voice actor.
Yeah. He was just doing an American accent instead of his British accent. That was just what Snake should have been practicing, and he should have looked like Liquid the whole time.
Yeah.
Now, there was somebody who mentioned, like, we were talking about how silly it is. I don't want to be mistaken for the terrorists when he cut his hair at the beginning.
I had heard,
And somebody said something like he didn't want Donald Anderson or Baker to think he was Liquid because they wouldn't want to reveal information to Liquid.
That is a very good.
So I guess that's
a very good point.
That's a point.
However, he could take off the wig but put it back on in the meantime.
Yeah, he could wear a wig instead.
Yeah.
And still look like Liquid. Anyway.
That's funny.
Okay.
And would a wig and sunglasses, especially if the person is like your identical twin?
Yes.
Would sunglasses and a wig, would that be enough for you to be like, oh, it's this other guy who I also know really well?
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe that's stretching a little bit.
Yes. Okay, we're going to stop there.
Yes.
That's it for this episode. We'll pick up again, and we'll see how far we can get. We may not finish next time, but we may. I've only actually got one more page of notes. So we can probably finish in the next.
I have probably more notes than you.
Probably.
I actually took quite a few notes here, but I should be able to get through them pretty quick.
Okay, so we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.